Yeah. So the interesting thing is that here on Friday, there was a botnet attack, and suddenly, exactly at midnight, which is 3 a.m. Estonian time, midnight GMT time, one of the attacks just dropped. Now, it could be a coincidence, it could be something else, but it could also be a hired botnet attack for 24 hours. It's interesting, I can't tell for sure, but hey, you know, it's interesting. So, there are some other types of special attacks going on. One example was something that we have seen before, but not very often, usually used by spammers or other botnet controllers when they're really pissed. They would create a special sample, a special bot, completely new code base. They would then attack you. Now, how did these samples get on the machines they're attacking from? Because these samples do not connect to a command and control server to get instructions. They do not propagate. They do not infect other computers. How did this botnet come to be? So what basically happens usually, you could go in different ways, the bad guys, as we call them here, the attackers, take the new samples, which again have hard-coded IP addresses of what they're supposed to attack, no connections to the outside world, so they can't be detected that easily, or the botnet can be stopped, and they drop it on a current botnet. If you look at all these different computers attacking, you are likely to find the same sample, or at least connected to the same command and control servers from a different sample on all these machines. So, new sample, unknown before, just dropped somewhere and launch an attack. That's pretty interesting. Now, how about the incident response? Well, that's pretty basic, but, well, let's begin. I mean, the first questions they ask themselves are, what are the sources of the attacks? Who is attacking us? Then, what are the targets they're attacking? Another basic question. And if there is a botnet attack, what is the CNC server? What is the command and control? Let's find it and take it down. Let's stop that attack. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Estonia's infrastructure was ill-prepared for such an attack. I can't blame them for that. What really saved Estonia was the response. Unbelievable incident response. And we'll talk about it now. So, what's the main goal of incident responders? Their main goal was basically to bring systems back online, or as it usually would be, don't even let them go down in the first place. The thing with incident responses, though, is after the fact. Something bad already happened. The shit already hit the fan. So, they basically decided, stop. Let's just read this. Not responding by identifying attacks, but rather by identifying their impact, meaning too many sources to even look at them, too many targets, too much attacks happening. Just let's try and find the impact. What went down? What can't we contact right now? Let's respond by that. It's a change in tactics. So, in 28, in the meeting that we mentioned, there were other mitigation approaches that were made. One is, again, don't concentrate on the sources, concentrate on the targets, which becomes the impact. And technical analysis, again, issue of limitation of resources, don't do analysis in any way except when you would have a clear effect in mitigation. We need to concentrate on mitigation, not research. This is not always true, but in some cases we have taken incident response and made it about forensics, about retaining evidence. Incident response is very basic in most cases. It's about responding to the incident, stopping it, containing it. That was the Estonians. Now, much of what we'll discuss from this point on is about culture, because in a very interesting fashion, a lot of the attacks themselves, the way they defended, were related to culture. And I'm not sure how much regular warfare is directly attached to culture, but hey, that's pretty interesting, and you'll see why, I hope. So, Estonia is in a unique situation. Everyone knows everyone, which means you can get in a car and drag people out of bed, which is pretty neat. except for the person in bed. Now, they're very small, which means their online presence is very, very concentrated. Which means they can do some things which, for example, the United States or very large countries with a very large presence will find very difficult to do, such as block incoming connections to the country for certain targets. Again, technology varies. This does not have to be blocking incoming connections. It could be something as simple as saying anybody connecting to the banks can only connect to the banks from our own internal internet exchange. The FTX, the Tallinn Internet Exchange. So, let's discuss the CERT. I'm calling it Estonia's luck, but it's no luck, they were there. So, response in Estonia was amazing. It's basically what saved Estonia. It's basically what made this attack disappear. And the CERT is basically two people. Hilar, which we mentioned earlier, and Ivar. There are other people in Estonia that responded, such as the professionals in the ISPs. They were amazing, honestly. They're the professionals in the banks. They're the system administrators, network administrators, other professionals in the news websites, not necessarily reporters, right? All these guys basically work together. Now, yes, the CERT would officially be the one responding and coordinating incidents, but it does not have the official authority to do so as far as I know. What did happen was, one, Hilar is a very special guy. He's very friendly, he's very nice, he also has no time for bullshit. And when something happens, he will go and drag you out of bed if he needs you. In one case, the police needed to move a website which was under attack. So in a matter of minutes, or an hour, the server was already heading to some other ISP. Everybody helped everybody. There are a few factors that contributed to the CERT becoming the leader in this attack. And these were by consensus and by facts of what actually happened. This is in the field. So the first thing was, the CERT was there. And they had nothing to do, no network to maintain, other than Estonia's. So they're working on it. Can't argue with that. The second issue was, the first attack sites, the first attack network, were the government, which means the CERT sits on the same floor as ASO, the Estonian government ISP. So when these attacks started, they worked with ASO. They helped coordinate the attacks. Margus called Hilar when he was abroad. Another issue was some of these sites, and basically one of the uplinks for the ASO is Elion, which is again the largest local ISP. Many other sites in Estonia are hosted by Elion. So by the time that Elion was already coordinating with CERT and ASO, other sites got attacked. It basically synced to the same mitigation process. Of course, again, there was Hilar, and Hilar is a really great guy, and he gets things done. So the CERT, whether it's by a lot of different contributing factors or to the way Estonians worked, became the leader of this amazing bunch. Now, this is local incident response, but as we know, the internet is global. If you don't have a bot in Estonia and you need information about where the CNC is, you take it from somewhere else in the world. You are getting attacked from other places in the world. Your computer, my computer, and your computer may be attackers. Your security may be reliant on my security because my computer is compromised. The internet is a global infrastructure. It's not a critical infrastructure that's only national. Estonia realized that. And they said, we are too busy. How can we deal with all these incidents, reporting it to the world, getting things done to mitigate the attacks from the outside? So they talked to 4 different European CERTs. I told them, be our escalation node. Like when you call an ISP and get escalated, same thing. Deal with it for us. Please help. So in Germany, in Finland, and Slovenia, these CERTs came through and said, hey, we'll help. Sure, why not? These CERTs coordinated and launched all these different emails for abuse reports. They worked with the Internet Security Operations community, as well as others worked with the Internet Security Operations community and helped directly. There were others involved, such as Arbor Networks, me, other guys. So that was taken care of as well. Now, although it was necessary, and although these people did do a lot of work, one of the things that was realized, that although all this help was necessary, as things went, it failed. This process failed. And not because these people weren't good, and not because they didn't help out, but because they didn't help out fast enough. They couldn't effect change fast enough to help Estonia. Now, Estonia is in predicament. They're successful technologically. And this is pretty well known. The more technological a country is, the more reliant it is on technology. If you're reliant on the internet, for example, then your vulnerability will be in the internet. And the more reliant you are, the more vulnerable you become. I'm all for success, I'm all for developing business and functionality. Security comes second, but security should be remembered, as we have seen here. So Estonia is not the United States. It's not Germany. It's not Israel. I'm not sure what each of these countries has as far as reliance on the internet and technology. I can tell you, we are not as reliant on it or as much of users as Estonia is. I'm not sure we're going there, but in some ways, Estonia is the future. It's a window to the future. They're completely reliant, and we'll discuss how in a second. Being completely reliant, we can see what would potentially happen to us. We know we're not as reliant. Maybe if we get attacked successfully, which is not a given, there will be some sort of economic recession, maybe even a depression. Estonia would be in much deeper trouble. Now, this is about the banking industry. As we mentioned, most citizens in Estonia have not been to a real bank in over a decade. This may be an overstatement, maybe some of them did go, I'm not sure, but you get the point. Now, during downtime, some of Estonia's banks were not reachable for a while. Not a long while, but a while. Client transactions, other transactions could not happen. It was all done online, meaning you could not buy basic groceries. As Hiller puts it, it's about milk, bread, and gas, or petrol. This became the critical infrastructure, and that's what we're going to discuss. Because I'm not talking about other e-banking or online banking threats or vulnerabilities right now. I'm discussing only reliancy, resilience, fallback. We'll get there. So, progress is good, resilience and fallback. If we used to have 4 bank branches, and now when everybody is using the web channel, which is very cheap and very useful, and the banks, of course, or other e-commerce sites want to maintain it, what do? We remove some branches. Where we used to have 4 branches, for example, now we would have only 1. But that leaves us with no resilience or fallback, because if the web channel or the internet channel dissipates, then what? I'm all for progress, but we need to keep these things in mind. Now, let's define critical infrastructure then. It was the private and business sector. It wasn't transportation. It wasn't energy. It wasn't SCADA systems. I'm not saying these usual, let's say, military infrastructures or civil infrastructures aren't important. But what got immediately attacked was the business and private sector. And when these got attacked, the country was impacted immediately. The ISPs, the banks, and yes, the media, the press, websites. Silence on the radio if you ever learned radio or communication. Very bad. I'm not talking about manipulation of these websites right now. I'm just talking about emergency, and these things disappear. These websites disappear. People need information. Now, another critical infrastructure was, yes, you and me. Now, when it comes to critical infrastructure, the first thing people usually consider is, let's call it the military one, or the critical infrastructure, national infrastructure.